morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to the Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this morning with David. And there I did it again. Every morning I watch the show on my phone right alongside with you so you can hear it directly from my phone. Welcome to the Weekly Energy Boost. This week we are covering our second episode on anger, focusing this week on releasing anger and blame. So if you didn't catch last week's show, hit pause, get back over whether you're listening on podcast, Facebook, IGTV, YouTube. Go to last week's show, which is the date was the 20th. There we go. It's very easy to figure out. Go to the July 20th episode and catch up on that. Today, we are going to be taking, I have a whole page in my notebook of questions and page in my notebook of tools to help our listeners release the anger and blame, whether it's ancient anger and blame. You know, I know there's a lot of people out there who consider themselves angry people, and they might even pride themselves on that. We are going to talk about how to let that stuff go.
A lot of times in our classes, we ask people, do you have an anger problem? And of course, nobody raised, maybe 2-3 people raise their hand. But after we go through the workshops and we learn it Kabbalistically, probably 95% of the class realizes they have an anger problem. Because it's not what people think. Right. It's not this rage, the bulging, throwing things and the bulging veins. Right. It's very hidden. It's hidden in our cells. It's hidden in different parts of our body. It doesn't come up all the time. So we all have it somewhere, and it's festering. It's causing some form of spiritual and physical sickness.
Right. So we chose this topic for this theme for the last couple of weeks because I don't know if you noticed it, but it is definitely in the air. It's on social media. Everybody's angry, and we're here to provide the solutions. That's what the Weekly Energy Boost is. It is your 7-day energy forecast. And what David and I do is we bring you the most practical and powerful prescriptions from the wisdom of Kabbalah. So some of it is different ways to think, different ways to feel, different ways to act, so as to deflect from whatever, right? The basic premise is the universe is giving us this opportunity to giving us all the reasons in the world to be angry, not so that we'll be angry, but so that we will overcome that tendency, so that we will transform it. And that's really what the next 48 minutes is about.
All right, so where do you want to start?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who posted questions in the comments in last week's show. I got a lot of emails last week, and I, on one hand, I want to thank everybody. On the other hand, I can't promise we'll get to everybody's questions because we also want to provide solutions, and I think that going through those questions is actually a great way to put out some of those solutions. If we don't get to your question, I think I actually answered most of the emails already. If we don't get to them on the show, I will answer them personally. So never fear, and we won't call you out either we won't tell you who asked what. So I think one of the big themes that I saw not only in the email that I'm referring to, but in the comments from last week's show on all the platforms is that a lot of people are angry about things that happened in their past. We got an email from someone who their mother was not present in their childhood, actually alcoholic, verbally abusive, sometimes even physically abusive. And even though now things are okay, quote unquote, there is still that elephant in the room of she did some terrible things, did a lot, emotional damage, physical damage, sometimes even. How does one let go? The question that the person who wrote in asked was, how do I let that go? Or am I supposed to just live with it?
Right.
And I think that was a question that came up in a few of the emails that I got was, am I supposed to just let it be, or am I supposed to work on it?
The number one question I ask when somebody brings a problem to me, and it's such a simple question, but it's the foundation of why many times we're going in the same loop. And people wonder, well, why am I in the same loop, attracting the same situations? There's a problem I can't get rid of. There's a pain that is with me for a while, and I can't heal that pain. And the question that we all need to ask ourselves is, what is it that I really want? And the reason why that's important is because each one of us are so powerful. We're so powerful on a soul level, on a body physical level. We have a lot of power. We don't realize it, but there's the way our spiritual makeup is that we can attract whatever reality we want. The universe will bend to our will, to our desires. The Creator gave us that free will and basically said, I will not intervene. I give you free will to decide whatever it is that you want. So when somebody has chaos, it's not that they want chaos, but there's so many different parts of the chaos that bring them instant gratification and pleasure, and it's familiar, it's habitual, and as a result, they want those things, and so they get the whole chaos package with it. So what I mean by that is, a person says, I'm still angry with my parents or my mom or my dad or somebody who hurt me in the past. I don't want to be angry. Let's break that down. Maybe you don't want to be angry. Who wants to be angry? But there is some pleasure in holding somebody else accountable. There is some pleasure in being upset with someone. There's some pleasure in blame. There is some instant gratification. The negative forces in our lives wants us to always look for what we call the little pleasures. So there is some benefit that we all have to staying stuck. Staying stuck has some little pleasure. It serves
us somehow.
There's a service
right
to it. And that's the only reason that we don't heal. We don't move on. Now, what happens after that and the steps to healing and, whether it's Kabbalah or some other method you use, that's secondary. The first thing is, who are you ready to let go of the little pleasures you get from the pain, hurt, or blame that you feel?
Sometimes it's also, are you willing to be uncomfortable with taking responsibility for your part of the story? And I think that that's one of the ways that anger serves us is it prevents us or protects us from having to take responsibility for making poor decisions or being reactive ourselves. Sometimes acting out of anger, we make mistakes. We do things that we wouldn't otherwise do or say. So part of that, how does getting angry serve me or blaming the other person serve me? It's often so that I won't have to make a certain effort, whether it's inner effort or even external effort.
Somebody was messaging me late at night last week, and they were saying, I'm really angry about something, and I thought maybe I could run it by you, you could help. I said, okay, so I couldn't talk on the phone, it was late, so I said, just let's message. So he's messaging me, and he's like, I'm really angry at the way the country's going, and we're, that whole thing. We're started, look what's happening in this city, and look what's happening in that city, and all these different things. And he's just vomiting everything on the text about how upset he is and worried and scared he is. And I said to him, so he's like, well, what you're not upset about all this? And I said, no, I'm not really that upset about it. And he's like, well, why? Aren't you? I said, well, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna do what I always do. I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna, I gave him my whole schedule, and I said, why don't you do the same thing? So he's like, no, but what about this? What about that? What about? I said, yeah, all those things are there, but what's going to happen? He's like, well, I said, what's the worst case scenario? He's like, well, and he explained all these worst case scenarios that could happen, like, civil war, I don't know what. And I said, well, when's that going to happen? He's like, it could happen in a year. I said, so you're saying I have 365 days to enjoy myself? And he was kind of confused. He's like, what? I said, yeah, if the worst case is going to happen in 365 days, well, you know what? I better enjoy and truly connect to the pleasure of each of these days. And then if that civil war occurs, I'll find another way to enjoy my life. But the point of the conversation was, I don't want to connect to the chaos. There's always this chaos. Forget even about the chaos that may not even happen. People have a choice every day. There's chaos. There's a world of chaos, which we call the 1% reality. And then there's a world of the tree of life. There's pleasure, there's happiness. And you can choose to connect to that. And that's not irresponsible, because you can't give what you don't have. So if you're connecting to happiness, if you're choosing happiness, if you're choosing joy, if you're choosing a system of how to live your life according to those rules, you'll have so much energy and so much light. You'll be given the wisdom that you need and information you need of how to actually improve things or help things. But it's this whole hysteria around the chaos that's coming, the chaos that's here. I'm angry about this, I'm angry about that. All of that's a trick. It's a trick that keeps people trapped.
And let's bring that back now to the question at hand. This person, and I'm sure many of our listeners also, have something to be rightfully angry about from their past, some way that they were wronged, that they were hurt, that they were mistreated. And I think that what David is trying to say is part of the, and it's actually, this is one of my little, on the tools side of my notepad, this is one of the tools, is that if you subscribe to that principle that everything that happens in my life, in my movie, is for my greatest good, it's to get me to my ultimate self, then whatever Miss, we'll call her S, went through in her childhood is there to get her to her greatest good. So we're not talking about situational anger, somebody made me angry. She's talking about something that happened in her past that when she goes there, or when it happened, she was angry. And if she thinks about it, she's also still angry. The Kabbalists say that if you're constantly looking for the good, that you will diminish, you will whittle away at that residual anger so that you actually change how you experienced that difficult situation. And, you know, I was reading a couple articles over the weekend, and a similar concept came up in that, you know, when something tragic happens, and I know that there's a lot of people thinking, well, there's a lot of bad things happening out there. How do you just look for the good? And there's nothing good that's happening in X, Y, and Z. Many times, and I'm saying, I read this article from Karen Berg. Karen was saying that, you know, there are a lot of people who went through really difficult things when they were young, and that difficult thing propelled them to start a movement. You know, whether the movement is actually a movement out there that hundreds of thousands of people are supporting, or it's a charity, or it's a business, or it's a career of helping others. But there was a way to take that piece of coal and turn it into a diamond. So point number one I want to put out there for releasing that anger and blame is when you're not angry, when you're not in that state, you know, again, this is for stuff from the past, look for the good. Look for how the situation made you more sensitive, compassionate, caring. Look for how the challenge helped you. Look for a certain kind of partner in your life, and now you have this loving relationship because you were looking for the opposite of what. There's so many dimensions you can live in any given situation. The Kabbalists teach that if you can find the light in the crack that lets the light into the situation, that crack will grow and grow and grow and diminish the darkness until it's gone forever.
So someone posted right now, it's so hard to look for the good, for example, when you had a father who kept on telling you were useless every day from the age of 12 to 18. So let's take that real quick. Imagine you had someone in your life, in this case, it's a parent, who put you down in all of your teenage years. Okay, so that happened. Kabbalistically, we know that the soul comes to this world. So Max wrote this. I'm saying his name because he posted it publicly. So Max, basically, Max's soul came to this world, and it had certain corrections it needed to make. We learned about this in Kabbalah 1. There's negativity, fears, there's things that we carry from past lives that we did not resolve or fix. We bring it into this life. Max's soul went into the family of his current father and mother, knowing that this dad, even with his verbally abusive ways, would be the perfect platform for Max to achieve his greatness. But it looks like the opposite. It looks like the father is
there to diminish
diminishing his greatness, suffocating his greatness. And the best visual is kind of like a slingshot or anything.
We talked about this last year in one of the shows, that those people that put you down, they're actually the slingshot.
Yeah, when people are putting you down, it's kind of like when you're pulling the slingshot back, right? If you want something to go the distance, or even if you want to throw a baseball, you don't
pull it back.
You got to pull it back. You can't just keep your hand ahead, and then what happens if you try to throw the ball with your hand all the way forward? It just drops. But when you pull, you cock it back. Everything needs to be cocked back.
The arrow, the slingshot, everything.
Everything
it's a beautiful visual.
Needs to be pulled back. And actually, the farther back it's pulled,
the greater the inertia.
Exactly. The greater is that the proper way of saying it?
Yes, it is.
And then
the momentum is that much stronger.
Exactly, and that's how you can achieve that distance. So the visualization is for Max and everybody. Let's not get bogged down with who did what and what they said. What we know is that they pulled us back. What we know is that they held us back, and that is essential to the forward momentum that I'm going to have. Now, the question is, are you going to, so what's the best way of putting this? The founder of the Kabbalah Center, Rav Ashlag, explains that if you pick a fruit before its maturation, it's going to be sour. That's always how it is. So if there's an apple or a plum or something on a tree and I pick it before it's ripe, it's going to be bitter. It's going to be sour.
You're going to suffer.
You're going to suffer. If you wait till the exact moment, if you take it to the distance, it's going to be sweet, and you're going to love that fruit. You're going to tell everybody about that fruit. So when something still feels bad, it means that I haven't gotten it to the point where it's ripe.
Not ripe.
Everything can be ripe. So even the situation with your dad that was very painful, there is a ripe ending to it. You just haven't gotten there yet. Well, when am I going to get there? We have free will to speed up that process. So you could get there tomorrow if you wanted. If you want to experience pleasure and happiness in your life as opposed to blame, which also has pleasure. Blame has a lot of pleasure, but not as much pleasure as letting go of blame. We don't know that, but it's true. If you're ready to do that, then you can taste that fruit tomorrow. You can taste that fruit in 10 years. Or maybe, Kabbalistically, we believe in reincarnation. The soul will leave. Max will choose his dad again. It could be in a different shape. It could be that he marries a man or a woman that is the soul of his dad. It could be that, it could be his business partner in next life will be his dad, the dad of this life. Bottom line is there will be a conflict that must be resolved. So some of us have business partners that put us down. Some of us have bosses that put us down. Some of us feel like the economy or the political system puts us down. That's all because in a past life, we had this put down energy and we didn't resolve it. We didn't rise above it. We didn't push the fruit to its ripening. And as a result, we have to experience it again. So my question to Max is, do you want to come back with your dad? Maybe as your dad, maybe he's going to be your son. It's going to be that son that's just like the problem son. It's like every child is great. And then there's that problem son because I didn't resolve it past life when my son was my dad or whatever.
Okay. Well, I think that what David is saying, and I think that it deserves probably its own.
That's its own class.
It's its own show because the tendency also when someone has hurt us is to get back at them, to punish them, to some sort of. I mean, it happened to me with my son was playing a video game and someone stole his points and he told me, well, I'm going to go and steal theirs. And I said, that's not the way the universe works. You're not the God's policeman. Let the whole system of cause and effect that exists in our universe take over and take charge. And I think that one of the things, apropos to what David was saying, you don't want to attract any of that unnecessary chaos to whatever is essential for your process, for your movie, for your greatness. You think we can go to the next one?
So we're talking about, just to put it in a structure, we're talking about stuff from the past that we're still angry about. Well, I have steps of what to do with stuff that happens now.
Right. So that's the next one. The next question.
Have we given enough? Have we given enough to the past? I mean, we haven't really.
Well, what I want to do is I want to give a tool with every question. So tool number one is find the good in the situation.
Find the good in the situation.
That's not when you're angry, by the way. When you're angry, you cannot, none of this applies.
Right.
There is, once you're already in the throes of anger, all of this becomes useless. We are talking about first preventative, and then now we're going to talk about with this next question, in the moment, you're being triggered. You have the opportunity to get angry. What do you do to diffuse that?
And finding the good also a lot of times means what is it that situation allowed me to expand, to become greater, or how can I become greater from it? That helps you ripen the fruit. As soon as you can push for that gift that you achieve because of the suffering you went through, you've ripened the fruit and you closed off that chapter. But until you get there, you're still in that sour spot, but that the fruit's not ripe yet.
I think that one other nugget that goes with that, I'll just frost the cake with this, is that many of the things in this particular situation, we're talking about letting anger affect us, but a lot of the situations that get us angry are situations that we can do nothing about. Like I'm thinking about the person you were texting with, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he's upset about how the country is being run,
Mm-hmm.
in this very second,
Mm-hmm.
he cannot do something about it. Can you vote? You can absolutely vote. Can you canvass for the things that you believe in? Absolutely. But at 11 o'clock at night while he was texting you, there was nothing he could do to change the situation that he was angry about. And that to me is also a way, something that helps me diffuse the anger, is if it's something, the anger comes to show me that something is not right. The question is, can I do something about it? If I can, great. Put my energy in creating the change. If I can't, let it go.
Here's something powerful to add to that. Anything that's done reactively, in this case from anger, because anger is a form of reactive behavior that we talk about. Anything that's done reactively or from anger, actually, the energy of it immediately goes into a black hole. So I was just thinking, does every vote count? You go to vote at the polls. Does every vote count? Spiritually,
the votes you do out of anger don't count.
Exactly.
Think about that.
If you vote because you're upset or angry,
you're trying to get someone back or punish someone else.
Yes. That vote actually energetically disappears. So it's almost like somebody dropped your ballot in a fire, on the way, or just it didn't get to its destination. You have to just visualize it. So you build a business, you start a relationship, you end a relationship. Anything you do from anger, it's as if you never even did it. And not only that, it sets you back and brings you more chaos. So sometimes it looks like we're angry and we achieve something. Right? When you're angry with your child.
By the way, we had a comment somebody wrote in the show. I don't think it was last week, but it was in a previous episode. If I don't act angry, people won't respect me.
Right. So it looks like, and here's that small pleasure, the opponent, that negative energy in this world, we all have it. The opponent will make you feel like your anger has achieved some result or success to your favor in the first 5 minutes.
It serves you.
It's got to serve you a little bit. It's got to give you, the opponent has to give you a little drug. But then in the end, he takes all of it. So the result is that it's total destruction. But it always will feel like it's working in the beginning.
Instant gratification with no lasting results. I don't think any of us really wants no lasting results. We want to know that we've had impact, that we've done something. And I think that that's the second question. Someone wrote in saying, okay, and this is somebody who's taken Kabbalah 1 because he was using the language in the email.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, somebody comes and pushes my buttons. I say, pause, what a pleasure. I let it go. Another person comes, pushes my buttons. I say, pause, what a pleasure. I let it go. By the 10th person, how do you want me? The question was, how could I not be angry already?
Well, then it goes to Tikkun. That's what we're talking about tonight in the Global Kabbalah 1. Pause, what a pleasure is great for the moment of being reactive. But when something happens at least more than once, let's say it happens twice, it means that there's something internally that I'm weak at, or a fear, or some kind of negativity that I need to then address and transform so that the same situation doesn't keep coming back to press my button.
So inside his question was half the answer, right? When something comes, something enters your radar that has the ability to anger you. And you might say, well, I don't get angry. You get upset, you get frustrated. Those are all low frequencies of anger, right? Eventually, what the person who wrote in is saying is that, okay, in the beginning he's frustrated, he's annoyed. By the 10th time, he loses it, okay? What we're talking, actually, I'm not even sure. I think it doesn't matter. The first thing we talk about when in our Kabbalah 1 course is just that pause, what a pleasure. That ability to say, wait a second, I get to decide how this affects me. I get to decide what to do here. And for me, I not only as a teacher of this concept, but as an experiencer of it, the realization, and by the way, in teaching this to kids, it is so powerful. Most of the world doesn't realize they can choose their response. Most of the world thinks that this is who I am. I'm an angry person. I'm a sad person. I'm a controlling person. And when we let that part of ourselves control us, first of all, it's very animalistic. It's a very, again, low-level behavior core. I don't know what you want to call it exactly, right? It's that I can't help it. It controls me. If there is something that you can't help or you can't control, this is where the pausing needs to take place.
You were telling me in the car here that actually, thanks to our audience, we're thinking of the largest live audience we've ever had right now. But thanks to our audience, that we're on the charts of the podcast chart. I think we've broken 100. We've on the spiritual U.S. charts. We've been in the hundreds like forever, but I think we got up to like 40 or something. But I was wondering why right ahead of us we haven't beaten this other spiritual podcast. It was about sex and witchcraft. That's what it was. That's actually a podcast that's more popular than ours. Sex and witchcraft. And it got me thinking, well, how are we going to beat them? I realized people want depth. People want something mystical, something deep. I think that was the message for me. So I was relating it to maybe we need to talk about sex and witchcraft from a Kabbalistic point of view, because there is a point of view. But you're not laughing. I thought you were laughing in the car when we were talking about it. Elisheva was uncomfortable again. So my segue to that was that our audience does want some deep stuff, and the depth is to understand that each one of us has three parts of our soul. We have three levels to our soul, and the lowest level is considered the animalistic part. It's called the nefesh.
That's the one that makes us. It controls us and inhibits our ability to use that executive function. Exactly.
And the reason why that's important is if you're always living according to the animalistic part of your soul, it's called nefesh, that's the kind of person that's always reacting. You don't really have a choice. You feel like you don't even have free will. Something happens, you respond. A problem happens, you try to fix it. Someone upsets you, you get angry. There's no pause to reverse your reactive behavior.
You're not even listening anymore. You're thinking about how you're going to respond without even hearing the other person.
Exactly. And that's reactive behavior. That's why Kabbalah 1 for people is like mind-blowing, because the first class is the pause and not to restrict your reactive behavior.
By the way, and people get annoyed. Okay, after we pause them, what do we do?
Yeah, exactly. That's the second question.
Don't even ask. Just pause.
Just pause. Not suppress, because pause, not knowing why I'm pausing, is suppression, and that leads to anger. Pausing, knowing that at that moment I become like the Creator. I access the light of this universe. I connect to that spiritual GPS, that spiritual ways, which then will guide me. Well, how do I know? How will it guide me? You're not supposed to ask that question, because the minute you pause, knowing you're connecting to the light of the Creator, the light starts to enter your system. And this is where you connect to the second part of the soul, which is ruach. And it literally translates into like the spirit or the divine spirit or the divine inspiration. So the moment a person pauses, they rise above the nefesh and they connect to that second part of their soul, which gives them divine inspiration. So if you ever wanted to know how to see the future, how to know what to do, who to talk to, what decision to make, you can never do it from that animalistic soul, which means that if you're a reactive person, especially an angry person, you'll never be given the wisdom of the future. The highest level, it's called neshama, is a prophecy. It's literally where you have a complete vision of the future. And some people have glimpses of these two souls, but imagine having it all the time. When people are on drugs, they also touch these parts of the soul. But you're on drugs, you're connecting to that energy unearned, so there's a chaos that happens afterwards. You can't take something for free. So the ruach and the neshama, which is what we all want, we want that vision, that ability to know what to say, how to say it. We want to be channels. We want something higher than us guiding us. It says that the ruach and the neshama leave a person as soon as they're angry, and the nefesh stays. Also, when a person dies, the ruach and neshama of a person leaves 30 days before they die. It's known that your soul knows the day of your death, so 30 days before.
David, you're just dropping all these secrets. It's
I'm
like,
trying
save
to
something
beat.
for next
I'm
week.
trying to beat the Sex and Witchcraft podcast. So
we need to title
I'm giving
next
you a
week's show
taste.
"Sex and Witchcraft."
I'm
and
giving
that'll
you
do
a
it.
taste. I haven't even, I'm just trying to like get out of the.
We are as sexy and witchy as the other podcast.
And there's like 4 witchcraft podcasts that are ahead of us, and I'm trying to understand what's the fascination with it.
We're gonna do our homework this week.
Yes, we're gonna learn what's going on there. So 30 days before a person leaves this world, the soul, parts of the soul leave as well. You can obviously reverse that, and that's why we always want to be on top of our spirituality, on top of our tests. And again, there's so much more we can go into it, but I wanted to give a little bit more texture to the concept of anger and what happens on the soul level.
Well, very simply, the the Zohar, which is the main text that we draw this wisdom, what David was saying before, comes from the Zohar. The anger is likened to idol worshiping. Basically, according to what David was saying, that the ruach and neshama leave the person, whatever spiritual level they're at is wiped away completely, and they're what's left is the shell of the human being that eats, drinks, and sleeps.
Right.
So that idea that even when so one of the other questions we got was, what do you do if the person you live with is constantly angry? Right? And is there anything we can do to protect ourselves from that energy? It was it's one thing if it's an angry boss and you get, you get to go home at the end of the day, but if you have to live with that person, especially in these days where we're spending more time at home probably than ever, what can we do? The Zohar says it's important to create a buffer between ourselves and someone who is angry. Constitutional anger, I don't know, that might have a different category, because of a person by nature, they're just angry all the time. Nothing necessarily, not situational, but constitutional. How would you live with that? What would you?
I'm going to say something that's going to
make me crawl under the table.
Great. I think you're going to.
Let me just get under the table.
You're going to walk out after I tell you this one. So it reminded me of something that happened like 10 years ago with a student when I was in New York, and whenever you have a complaint about your partner, especially someone you live with, someone that you're romantically involved with, and you can't just escape it or get out of it. How do I deal with their anger? How do I deal with their infidelity? How do I deal with all these emotional ups and downs? I always tell the person, before we can even ask this question, let's deal with the low-hanging fruit of your own personal fears and selfishness. We can't even discuss what to do with this other person. There's no confrontation. There's nothing we can do with this other person until you, on a basic level, make a list of all the spiritual things that you need to do, where you're reactive, where you have anger, where you have fears, where you have neediness. And we spend the next 2 months, step by step, Kabbalistically, overcoming and transforming that. Then you'll create a light in the home that will definitely transform your scenario. But until then, what came to my mind, and feel free to leave the room if you want to, is there was this guy, and great guy, successful, from the outside, just totally normal, whatever. And he was telling me, that his wife is not interested in intimacy with him, and all these different, and always angry with him, and all these different things. And she's like, "What do you want me to do?" It's like, I'm spiritual, I'm great, I work hard, I provide for the family, so many things. But his wife just didn't want any intimacy, and this is a common thing in marriages after a certain point. And I looked at him.
I know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say.
I've worked on this. I'm okay with it.
All right. So I said to him, I said, let's just say his name is John. His name wasn't John. I said, John, something came to my mind. I said, do you have an addiction to pornography or anything of that nature? And he looked at me and he's like, well, what does that have to do with anything? So I said,
girlfriend.
I said, look, it's not about good or bad or religion or anything like that. I said, you are taking energy from something just for yourself. Forget about even the spiritual ramifications of that. But your wife feels number two. And you drawing
even if she doesn't she
doesn't
know
know.
About
She
it.
doesn't even
That's how I want to make it.
know.
It's not that she is upset at him consciously because she sees what he's doing. She doesn't know. But there is an energetic vacuum.
That's what I'm trying to say.
There you go.
So I'm like, we can't even talk about her and what she's doing or not doing when you aren't even in control of your own desires. Because he said, well, I had an addiction since I was young. I said, that's my whole point. It's not even about what you're addicted to. I don't care if you told me you're addicted to bananas. The fact that you aren't in control of your desires is attracting a woman who isn't in control of her desires.
Even though the woman is in his life for 20 years. The version of her right now is a reflection of what he is doing behind closed doors. Because
I can guarantee you, if she left him and went with another man, she'd all of a sudden have no intimacy issues because the person becomes a reflection of where you are spiritually. And I said, until you become the master of your desires and the master of your domain, which you're not, you can't expect to attract people who are in control of their desires and especially have positive desires towards you. And I don't know what the statistic is. I think it's like 95% have, that problem.
This is when I leave the room.
This is when you leave the room. And I bring it up because I know it's uncomfortable, but I tell men who want to know about building wealth, career, whatever, I tell them the number one thing is to be in control of yourself in those areas. It's not about good or bad. We don't go into good or bad or morals. We don't ever talk about that in Kabbalah. That's not what Kabbalah is about. It's about being in control. If you're not in control of your reactive desires and addictions, you block that channel that's called Yesod, which represents sustenance, especially sustenance, but many things. Children start acting up and different things, but definitely sustenance. A man who wants to become wealthy has to be in charge and in control of that part of his life.
What about anger? I'm gonna piggyback on the controversy.
See how I brought in sex and witchcraft?
Yes, and masturbation all in one show.
I didn't even bring that up. You brought that up.
Okay, thanks.
But that's implied.
The M word. What about when people that get angry when they're drunk or intoxicated on something, like people that don't have anger unless...
Right. We know that when a person drinks, they draw an energy that's called the light of wisdom. That's why people enjoy it. Alcohol is powerful. It draws light.
Wait. What David's saying is a positive thing. He's not explaining the anger right now. Right. When a person drinks...
Yeah, they draw a certain light. So that's why drinking in certain ways with a certain intention and a certain purpose is positive. Obviously, you overdrink, you drink too much, you drink for the wrong reasons, you draw that energy and the cup overflows. So it creates like a spiritual chaos. But it says that when a person draws that energy, you learn the truth about them. So how a person is when they're drunk is very indicative of their tikkun. So if a person gets angry when they're drunk...
But again, you're saying drunk, not you had a glass of wine with dinner. We're talking about when you're no longer...
When you start to lose your control a little bit, then the tikkun of the person comes out. The true nature of the person. So some people get angry, some people get sad, some people get silly, some people
get lovey-dovey.
Sure.
It
means that at the core, that's who they are. Who you are when you're drunk is at the core who you are. Of course, there's a lot of other traits and desires and stuff all around it, but it's just an interesting fact. So I don't know if I answered your question. I think you were going somewhere else with that.
No. Somebody wrote, about a person who is fine unless they drink. And then when they drink, they get angry.
Right. So it means that they're suppressing this tikkun that they have. They have some hurt. They have some pain. They're blame. They're upset with something or someone. They're just not talking about it. Comes out when they're drunk.
Right. So the real answer is it doesn't make it any less real or serious if they keep it in check. It's still there.
Correct. So we're not talking about suppressing the anger. We're talking about doing what requires the most amount of strength.
And we're talking about drugs as well, or just drinking?
I think both. I would say both. I know so many different types of drugs.
I was going to say, alcohol is alcohol in a way. I mean, I realize that wine and beer and liquor, different strengths, but the thing that is doing the work is the alcohol within them.
Right.
In drugs, there's so many different drugs. Some drugs bring a person up, some drugs slow a person down. It's a whole other thing.
I wanted to share the one or two tools to how to deal with anger as it's happening now.
Yes. No, for sure. All the other questions need this answer. So let's talk about it.
So number one, it's a powerful concept that I hear all the time from the classes of our teacher, from Rav Berg's teachings, from the 10 Luminous Emanations, which is the highest study of Kabbalah, that he says that a person should realize that everything in this world is an illusion, and that even though something looks broken in front of you or looks chaotic, there's two worlds simultaneously. There's the broken version of what's happening, but there's a perfected version in a parallel reality. Simultaneous, and that's kind of more the mystical way of looking at something. So let's say all of a sudden something happened and you lost money today. You lost money in the stock market, you lost money in the business, and you lost a client, you lost a customer. You think you lost something. But the Kabbalists say there's a parallel reality where that didn't happen, or maybe it happened, but meaning the energy didn't leave. So even though it looks like you lost, let's say, $1,000 physical dollars, The spiritual...
The irony is when you lose it in, let's say, the stock market, there's no physical dollars. It's just
Right.
digits.
It's all digits. So it's kind of like, that's why day trading can be so reactive, because you're looking at it every moment. It's up and down. But the long-term view is always usually positive. So it's at that same moment, let's say a person steals something from you. If at that moment you can say, that's an illusion, that's where pause comes in. You're basically saying, pause. The negativity I'm seeing is an illusion. I'm not going to react to it. In fact, I'm going to get excited about it. The excitement and that positive frequency you create, the frequency of certainty, the frequency of sharing, the frequency of everything is great, shifts you to the world where the theft never happened. Well, I still am out $1,000. That's all nice. Is this some kind of a head trip where I'm just trying to, trick myself into feeling good? The Kabbalists say no. You say that's an illusion. You have certainty. You have that positive vibration. At that exact moment, because you never lost the energy of the $1,000.
And you didn't give energy to the false reality.
Exactly.
I think one of the things that attracts chaos for a lot of us is we give so much energy to
Exactly.
the loss rather than the reality we do want.
Exactly. Because wherever you give energy, that's where your soul goes. So you give energy to that perfected reality, which you can't see, you can't feel, you don't even know if it exists, but you're saying, Kabbalah teaches me it exists, so I'm going to give energy to it. All of a sudden, you never lost the spiritual money. You just lost the physical cash. All of a sudden, the physical cash will then also come back in some way, maybe not in the same way. Maybe you never catch the thief, but you make the money somewhere else, or it comes back even more. So one of the ways to resolve anger is to realize that everything you're seeing on the news, in your feed, from your friends, you could be at the dinner table.
But also stop watching the news and stop looking at your feed.
You can. The opponent will find a way to get in.
It's magical what that does to you.
It's like, imagine you're sitting at a dinner table with people you love, and all of a sudden one person says, I love this, and it's like totally opposite. It's like a political thing, and it's totally opposite of what you believe. At that moment, you just say, pause. Just an illusion. Everything's an illusion. They could come out on the news and say, we're entering nuclear war, and you have to say, it's an illusion. Now, when you say that and you pause, you enter that reality, it's the higher levels of your soul. I'm not saying be dumb and put your head in the sand. I'm saying when you connect to that reality where everything's an illusion, you start to be given information, wisdom, and the right circumstances to make a difference or take action if needed. But if you ever try to take action from the place of the chaos, from the place of the illusion, you'll never achieve anything, because you're playing in the world of chaos. So everything's an illusion. Oh, this happened and that happened. Pause. Total illusion. Connect with the light, and then the light of your soul will guide you into the right way.
What David just said is so important. Rewind it, repeat it, just clip the last 3-4 minutes and listen to it over and over again, because this week, according to the Kabbalistic calendar, is a week that will be paved with the type of illusion that brings us into...
That's right. It's the biggest illusionary week is this week.
Of the entire
year.
So if you do anything this week, do what David just said. Do not feed the fear, the negativity, the things that provoke you. I want to share something that happened to me, because I don't know that the losing the money necessarily speaks to everybody. Something happened to me on Saturday that got me very upset. I was very upset about something on Saturday, and I could not sleep Saturday night because of it. Okay? True confessions of a Kabbalah teacher. But what I realized, it's too bad that we didn't have this show last week. We didn't give the solution last week, so I completely forgot the true reason. No, I wasn't. Okay. I don't think anybody knew I was upset. Let's put it that way. But
You're very good at hiding your upsetness.
Years of acting classes, actually.
Or being Pisces, both.
Both, but acting classes certainly helps.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of trouble sleeping. Finally, I got to sleep. And I realized, this is that time of year that the universe is going to serve us on a silver platter all of the things that we really, to reveal our I don't want to say weaknesses, but all of the areas where we need strength. And I saw clearly before I went to bed, thank goodness, that was what was keeping me up, actually. It was highlighting something that I so thought I had put to bed already. And I decided, you know what, if come the end of this week, the end of this negative period, right? We spoke a couple of weeks ago that we're entering this 3-week period. The last 9 days of it are the most intense. The intensest day is this Thursday, and Friday we'll see the energy starts to ebb and into next week, which is one of the most positive days of the year in it. And we'll talk about that next week. The reality was, I just said to myself, you know what, if at the end, when this period is over, if it still bothers me, if it is still an issue, I'm going to deal with it. But for right now, it's just going to be an illusion. And whatever the 8 hours that I was upset about it, or I don't know exactly how long it wasn't all day, but it was a few good hours. I said, you know what, bummer that my opponent got me to lose that time. I mean, obviously I was serving dinner and bathing children and doing everything. Like David was saying, it's not like I stayed in a cave for 8 hours mulling it over. But that's what do what I did. I'm sharing it because that's really the way to go. So, what's bothering you, what makes you angry this week may be valid, but you don't know because of the nature of this week's energy. So put it on a shelf. And if it still bothers you, come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday of next week, there may be something to look at. But I bet, and I would seriously even put money on it if that were my compulsion, which it's not also, those things won't be important next week. You will realize that it was all a setup to test your spiritual prowess. And it's not like you get a reward. The reward of and within itself is that you're no longer at that lower level where you were angry about those things. That there are things that you get. I don't know. You get the reward in the form of energy and strength rather than the $1,000 back in your bank. Although it may result in the $1,000 back in your bank, or even $5,000 because you didn't fill the illusion of the lack. I'm no longer filling the illusion that whatever happened on Saturday is my reality. And therefore, I could be literally writing it out of my script. But if it's still in my script come next week, I know it's something that I need to address. And I'm saying that because if somebody stole your $1,000, you may have to take action eventually.
And I want to be very clear because we're not saying to be in denial or pretend like it doesn't exist. We're saying what happened what is happening is happening. What is the illusion is what you think is destructive about it. Because I know when the virus came, I know a class of people that were hit very hard, but immediately came to me, and they're not even studying Kabbalah. They said, this is phenomenal. I don't know why it's phenomenal. I don't even know. I'm going to connect to the reality that is, and all of a sudden they attracted this scenario, that scenario, and it's been like the best thing for them financially, when in reality it should have been the worst thing for them. So they basically identified right away, there are two realities. And they just connected to the one that was the perfected reality. So both realities always exist. So we're not saying step away and do nothing, because then you're not connecting to anything.
Right.
We're saying the chaos right now, that's an illusion, because there's actually a reality where it's perfected. I want to connect to that. All right, what do I need to do? How do I need to approach it? And you may take the same actions you're taking now in your life, but with a different mindset. The mindset of, I'm connecting to the perfected reality, not to the destructive reality, and I'm going to try to fix it and fix people and make a stand.
Or ignore people, right? If somebody
people.
bothered me on Saturday, I'm not ignoring them this week. I'm just not feeding the situation with any more energy because it may have just been a construct of my imagination, which is totally possible in these
right.
3 weeks.
We have a lot of new people who joined us today, much more than we usually have. And just to let people know, we've spoken a lot about Kabbalah One. We had a global Kabbalah One on Kabbalah.com. We had about 1,500 people last week. I believe that's closed. I believe people cannot register for that anymore.
But there's another one in. We have another one.
I don't think it's scheduled yet. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's coming.
September.
But one of the ways that people can study, which is, and you can even do this if you're in the global Kabbalah One, the live global Kabbalah One, is KabbalahOne.com. And all of our listeners get a discount. It is the most life-changing course I believe we've ever given. It's beautifully done. It is step-by-step, and it has content that we don't actually have in our live Kabbalah Ones because we have bite-sized videos for people who are just find that their schedule doesn't allow them to listen to a full kind of length course. I recommend listening to both. But this has been the most powerful way for people to learn and study. And if you are taking the Global Kabbalah One, I'll say taking this in tandem with it is a way to go even deeper if you want to learn deeper content. And thank you. And thank you for supporting us every time you like and share where our audience grows. If you miss this, you can always hear it again on Facebook. And a lot of people are asking that. How can we hear it again? Also on our podcast. As you know, we're trying to beat the Sex and Witchcraft podcast that is ahead of us.
That's not our purpose.
Spot 40, we're 41. Of course, that's not our intention, but if it happens, it will make us feel good about ourselves. So we want to get into the top 10.
If you want to give David a present, this is what you should do.
So my competitive nature. So obviously we want to get into the top 10. Getting in the top 10 shows that we're reaching the people and that we're making a change.
Listen, when I want to grow my knowledge in something, I look at the podcast charts and I see who in that area
Absolutely.
can I learn from.
Absolutely.
So the more you share, the more you comment, rate, review. We are on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, CastBox, Stitcher, IGTV, YouTube, and here on Facebook. We are live every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific. Next week, we are talking about sex and witchcraft.
Is it?
No. I mean, we could change it. But the plan is to talk about love, but maybe we can work love, sex, and witchcraft into the title. We are looking, we're fielding guests, so hopefully we'll have some guests on the show next week with us as well. But you can continue to write your comments, your questions. We'll go back. As you saw this week, we got a lot of emails and we'll answer them. If not in the show, then personally. Have a fabulous week. Be on your toes because you don't want to give in to any, as David said, illusions. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.